Hey guys, today I'm going to be painting Theadora from Stuffed Fables. Now, you might notice that this kind of flash trimming portion of the video is quite long, and that's because it took a long time. This might be some of the worst flash I've seen on a miniature. Now, that being said, it's not hard to get to, it's just kind of a lot of work. There is a lot of it. I don't know if it's the plastic they used or how they molded it, but either way, quite a bit. And it got kind of frustrating because I did 4 of them at once, you know, just to kind of sit down and do it. And really what I wanted to do was paint. But you have to do this, and I thought about removing it from the video, but that would be disingenuous to the painting process. So if you're going to paint them, you're going to need to do this, otherwise it will not look good. It's very noticeable when you paint a raised bit bright orange, for instance. So you're going to have to kind of sit through this a little bit as I do it. But a little bit about Theadora. So I've just started playing this with my kids, and she seems to be kind of the, not necessarily the leader, but she's definitely the most mature one, except for Stitch, but not as wise as Stitch, because Stitch is like super old or whatever. So kind of an interesting how each of them can have a personality there. But other than that, she's really easy to paint. Just have to really trim this flash, and I mean a lot. And in fact, what you're seeing is about half of it. After I filmed all of the lines, I got really close and did a really good job on it too, because if it's not smooth, it's gonna look pretty bad when you actually do paint it. Okay, so just showing that I did prime it. I prime it in gray, so it's kind of hard to tell, but it is primed. And we're starting with Deathclaw Brown. I figured this was kind of a good, it's kind of an orangey brown, but more on like the light brown spectrum. I don't know how best to describe it. It looks like a good base color. Now, if you notice, it's not a chibi. And if you don't know, a chibi is something with like a huge head. You'll see those kind of stylized things. However, it is a big round miniature with lots of surface area that isn't broken up with detail. And so because of that, I didn't want it to just kind of look like a blob. I wanted to add a bit of, I don't know, just subtle color variation. So I'm actually going to mix this on my wet palette with 2 different colors and just add some slight highlights of a different color and some slight shadows of a different color. That's just kind of a shift in the color because I'm mixing the 2. So just keep that in mind. But base coat, Deathclaw Brown. So I'm adding some clear orange here. So it's very subtle, as you can tell. You'll see it a bit more. There you go. You can kind of see it a little bit more. It just makes it slightly more orange, but it's still the Deathclaw Brown. And I'm adding that kind of on the tops of the eyebrows, on the head. It's kind of like a highlight. So it highlights slightly more into the orange. So I didn't add any white or anything like that. Instead, I'm just changing the color just ever so slightly. So this is that clear orange, and so I'm putting it, you know, where she's kind of like with her tummy out a little bit, as she's leaning forward with her letter opener there, that she's using as a sword. And just kind of on the raised bits there, on the back bottom portion, and then on the sides of the leg, and you know, really just trying to, as if I was highlighting, because I'm just highlighting in that slightly more orange on the cheeks too, don't forget that. Now I've mixed some flat earth into it, and this is to bring it to a more darker brown of the Deathclaw Brown that we're already using. And I'm putting this on the complete underside, on the insides of the legs, and then in kind of the folds. And I'm also outlining kind of all of her appendages, ears, arms, stuff like that. That right there underneath that outstretched arm with the scarf on it is the highest point of shadow, besides right under her. I'm kind of, you know, because of how her head's tilted, I just put the light as if it's coming from that angle. And I don't know what that is. That's like a, you know, what, like a 80-degree angle, maybe 70-degree angle. Anyway, coming down from there. And so I wanted to just put that there. While I have the flat earth out, I did the stitches in the same thing. So that is the flat earth. I had it a little too watery from my mixing, and so I had to dab a little bit there. And then inside of the ears, kind of a darker brown too. That's just typically how it is. I don't know if it's an actual color difference or if it's shadow. Either way, that's how you always see them. Abaddon Black, this is watered down, so it needed 2 coats, but I wanted to be extra careful and be able to smudge it with my finger if I needed to. That's for the button eyes, it's for her nose, and it's for the inside of her mouth. If you look back on the concept art, that's all very black, and it adds a lot of character to the face, as you can see. Mechanicus Standard Gray. This is a very dark gray that I'm using as kind of the glisten point on the button eyes, and then on the top of the nose. So you can kind of, I'm essentially highlighting it in gray. And then we have Averland Sunset. This is for the belt that we have around her. I flip-flop between brighter yellow and this kind of more muted yellow, and I went with this one because it's a little bit closer to the brown, and I didn't want it to be... Her scarf is this kind of more dark purple color, and I didn't want this to be super, super bright. Not that I don't want the characters bright, though it all takes place at night where it's dark, but I didn't want this random glowing yellow kind of belt thing. Okay, so we're moving on to Kantor Blue, and this is, it's not really a flat blue. I don't know how best to describe this, though I think I've used Kantor Blue a lot with the Druchii Violet, which is the wash I'm going to use to bring it to a more purple. And I think it turns out really good once you add the wash on top of it. Sometimes you'll, especially with the colored washes, you'll add one on top and it'll shift the color in a weird way. And so I really like how this looks. So I know how the combination looks, so I just went to that. So a flat blue from Vallejo might have worked. You know, Lothern blue would have been too bright, I think. But either way, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I've done this entire model in the detail brush. Sorry, the character brush. I actually don't have the detail brush, but it's that easy. The mold lines are really good and crisp, and it's very easy to even get the edge. And there was some minor touch-up off camera, but otherwise it's pretty okay. There's this Druchii Violet that I spoke of, and adding that on top of that, I think just gets a very good blue-purple kind of color that I really like, and I think highlights quite well as well. But as you can see, I'm still just kind of using this this character brush here. So dark vermilion, I think, is a perfect color for this heart, because it's kind of red and kind of pink. I didn't want to do like an Emperor's Children or something like super bright pink, but I didn't want just red either. And a little smattering of Lothern blue. Looking back at the concept art, you could probably do this in the Kantor blue instead of making it so bright, but I did kind of like having that kind of heart stitching very bright. So this is the Kantor blue, just plain, just to kind of bring back up the highlights, and then I'll highlight legitimately with some white starting now. So I've added some white in there, and I'm just adding a little bit of highlight on those raised portions. I don't know if you noticed or not, but at this point I need to clean my brush. This has been a solid paint session for me, and apparently my brush needs to be cleaned and have its point given back. It's a little rough, but I'm still able to work with it. And that's how good this miniature is with that. So Steel Legion Drab for the Scabbard. I thought about doing flat earth to reduce a color. However, I do like subtle color variations as well. Now we didn't really use the flat earth except on the stitching, so it probably wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But either way, I wanted it to look, I don't know, a little different, a little bit of a different brown. I think a lot of times that adds a lot. Then I added that flat earth on the inside there. Stormhost Silver for the entire letter opener except for the handle, which, I don't know, I don't know if a letter opener really looks this much like a sword, but I believe this is the letter opener item. I'd have to check the concept art again, but either way, covering the whole thing in that. And then Nuln oil I'm using to kind of shadow the bottom two angles. So it's kind of a 4-angled sword here. And then brass, I chose it just because it's nice and bright, so it'll stand out really well. And I added this as kind of the handle there. And now I'm adding violet in with my mixing brush even. I'll swap to a normal brush in a second here. But this is for the violet color. So in the concept art, when I pop it back up again, be sure to look, but he's kind of on this bed with these covers. Flash Glitz yellow for some free-handed stars. This is the first time I've ever free-handed anything, and I figured this would be a good point to try it because I wanted them to look kind of rough, almost like a drawing. And so I felt this looked good. Either way, I'm doing all the bases based off the concept art and what they're standing on. So he's kind of on this kind of blanket, just showing that I matte varnish it. And so I wanted to put that down on the base. So after the matte varnish, I want to put some gloss coat. This is just the tester's brush on gloss coat. And this is to make it kind of shiny. And here she is. Here's a finished model. As you can see in the concept art where she's standing kind of on the blanket, I wanted to bring that into the base, and I'm going to be doing that with each mini, which means each one will be kind of unique, and I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think that'll be kind of cool. Additionally, she painted really quick and really easy. The miniature is really easy to paint, and honestly, I think it took as long to paint as it did to trim the flash. Probably a bit of an exaggeration, but that's how it felt like anyway. So I'm going to actually be doing something a bit different with these videos. I'm actually going to put the paint list in the description below, so look for that. However, it's just going to be a what I used and where. I'm actually going to write up an actual kind of instruction on my, how I actually went about painting that. And that'll actually be on Patreon because it'll take a little bit more work and have a little bit more fluff to it. But I think it'll turn out kind of nice. So look for that if you are interested. Either way, thanks so much. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll talk to you again real soon.